Grading NFL off seasons, going by each division. That way we can talk about each team. Today, we are going to talk about the AFC South. If you haven't seen it already, I have done the AFC North, so go ahead and check that out. And quick shameless plug here, I do have two other channels, Zealous Wrestling and Zealous Fantasy. If you're into fantasy football, check out Zealous Fantasy, give you tips and advice on how to win your fantasy football seasons in 2026. Going straight into it though, we have the AFC South that we will be grading. Let me hit the right button. There we go. We have the AFC South that we will be grading today. I want to move this screen over here. All right. Grading the AFC South today, and we're going to start with the Houston Texans. As always, if you have advice on how to make this look prettier for you, please let me know. On my screens, it look good, but I'm filming this in OBS. It's not 100% clear, as you can see. If you have any advice, please tell me. And also, one last thing before I get into it, I guess. If you want this spreadsheet, I will link it in the description below. I'm, for whatever reason, decided I wanted to have everything in one place instead of having to look up everything, every team, who they got rid of and who they added and their stats from 2025. So I made a spreadsheet with all of the info on it, one page for everybody, and then all purdied up for each team. Again, link will be in the description if you want that. It's kind of useless. You can Google it, but whatever. I chose to do it because I have weird brain, I guess. So we're starting with the Houston Texans. Something that the Houston Texans did, which they have done the past couple of seasons, I would say, is be aggressive. Not ultra aggressive, as in they went out and got some big time players to come play for them. They just went out and did a lot. I do like the signing of Braden Smith from the Colts, upgrading their tackle position. They trade away Titus Howard to the Cleveland Browns, which I didn't love. I actually like that move for Cleveland. We talked about it in the AFC North video, AFC North video. I didn't love that because I like the flexibility that Titus Howard has and the versatility that he has to play each position on the offensive line, at least guard and tackle. So I didn't love that move from Houston, who struggles at O-line. I get he's not the best offensive lineman, but I think just there's a lot of value in being versatile like Titus Howard is. We'll stick with the running back or the offensive line moves right now. They signed Evan Brown from the Cardinals, which again, solid move there. And then I believe that's all they did. They traded away an offensive lineman, a backup offensive lineman in the David Montgomery trade. They traded away a pick and Juice Scruggs for David Montgomery. I actually really like this move. I think a lot of people are more down on this trade than I've seen. They didn't give up much to do it. And I do think there is a world, a very realistic world, might I add, that David Montgomery comes in there and does what Joe Mixon did 2 years ago, pre-injury. Now, David Montgomery has his own set of injury risks that comes with him. And so I do think it could be very similar to the Joe Mixon thing where David Montgomery comes in, sets the world on fire, and then gets injured. Hopefully it's just not as bad as Joe Mixon's where you never see him again. So obviously in this light, we have to mention Joe Mixon got cut as well. But do we really have to mention it? He didn't even play at all last season. Honestly, as far as people they got rid of, that's the main ones. Obviously, you have good depth and good role players in this losses list, like a Mario Edwards, and then a Christian Kirk, who got some significant playing time with injuries at the position, and Tommy Townsend, punter, solid punter. But that's really all they lost. They bring in, I forgot to mention, they brought in Wyatt Teller, guard for the Browns, when I was talking about the offensive lineman, which definitely is not as good as he once was, but I do believe is a solid, serviceable lineman and an upgrade for Houston at least. So I do think they upgraded the offensive line is something, all that to say I do think they upgraded the offensive line. They bring in Reed Blankenship, which I think was a good deal. And then that's the main things I wanted to talk about. The other things that they did really well is keep this defense intact. They extended a Will Anderson. They extended a Danielle Hunter. They extended Sheldon Rankins. That's really all that matters. I think, Azeez Al-Shir. I think it's very important with how great this defense was to keep them intact. I mean, the defense is why they won so many games, especially late when C.J. Stroud was going through whatever he was going through. So So keeping this core intact, I think, was very good. Dalton Schultz on a 1-year extension, perfectly cool with that. You also, in the first round, go out and you draft another offensive lineman, another guard. They did a lot to upgrade this offensive line, and I'm very big on that. It should help CJ Stroud out a lot, who, truthfully, looked like he was Sam Darnold and seeing ghosts. Jet Sam Darnold and seeing ghosts. So I do think upgrading the offensive line was significantly, I'd say probably their number one priority going into this offseason. And now if you're healthy, now it's a big if, but if you're healthy, you have a Nico Collins. Tank Dell potentially comes back. You have Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. You have a solid receiving core. You re-sign, like I said, Dalton Schultz, and then you upgrade this offensive line. If CJ Stroud can play well, then you're looking really good. They did a good job of keeping, of course, D'Amico Ryans, but also both their coordinators. So, honestly, I love everything they did. You take a look at their 2025 team stats. Most of their issues you see rushing a game, not very good. They upgraded their offensive line and bring in David Montgomery. And now, of course, you still have Woody Marks, who's going to be a really good RB2. I love what they did with that. You would hope if the offensive line is better, CJ Stroud will be better. You just kind of hope CJ Stroud's going to be better anyway. You hope he locks in. And that is one thing that I think they did poor. I've talked a lot of good about this offseason so far, so it's clear I'm going to give them a good grade. But something that I think they did do poor, they didn't bring any insurance just in case CJ Stroud was bad. They have a great team. They have an elite defense. They have good weapons. And they have what I think is going to be an upgraded offensive line. You, in my opinion, needed to bring in insurance. You bring in my opinion, the answer would have been Kirk Cousins. You bring in a guy like Kirk, who is a guy who's not going to go out and win you games, but he's not going to lose you them either. And I think that would have been a great move for Houston. You have CJ, who's going to miss a couple games. He has every year. So you have then Kirk to be your backup. And then you honestly apply pressure to CJ. A lot of people have a problem with that. Not me. If you're going to be my starting quarterback, there's going to be adversity. There's going to be pressure on you. You're the starting quarterback of an NFL team. Apply a little bit of pressure. If he cracks and he can't handle it, then you have a guy to go to in Kirk Cousins, and that's not Davis Mills. So that is my one big complaint with this offseason, is that they didn't bring anybody in to challenge CJ Stroud. So as far as the grading goes on here, I'm going to try to keep these shorter than I did last time. So I'm going to end it with this, or the Texans. I'm going to end the Texans with this. As far as the grade goes, I kind of wanted to give them like an A, but there's no signing that I felt like, stamp an A on it. Also, of course, like I said, I have a problem with the quarterback thing, and the quarterback is the most important position on the team. So I'm bouncing between a B+ and an A-. I think officially I'm going to go with a B+, but I could easily be convinced into an A-. But there's just no huge move, and I really think they should have done something at the quarterback position. So I'm going to go with B+. We're on to the Indianapolis Colts now. An offseason I didn't love. Let's be transparent here. So they go out and they re-sign two guys to huge contracts. Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce. I get that Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce were great for you last year. I don't think paying Daniel Jones $44 million a year was the answer. I don't think paying Alec Pierce dang near $30 million a year is the answer. Another issue that I have with the offseason is, in order to pay Alec Pierce, you had to trade away Michael Pittman Jr. I think Michael Pittman is arguably the better guy. And it's so slight, I guess you go with the younger guy in Alec Pierce. I don't hate that. I just don't love that you're trading away Michael Pittman to keep Alec Pierce. I didn't think he was worth that, especially when you look at the contract that Michael Pittman signed when he got to Pittsburgh. He signed a contract that was worth $19 million a year. You're paying Alec Pierce $30. I'm just not a fan. Daniel Jones is coming off Achilles injury, and I believe also a ACL injury. That's insane. I have a lot of fear that he's not going to... Daniel Jones at his peak already is like average at best. I have a fear that coming off a blown Achilles and ACL, he's not going to be able to move, which severely limits Daniel Jones as a quarterback. I don't love that move. I don't love paying him. I don't love paying Pierce and just to trade away Pittman. You lose Braden Smith. You lose Kwity Paye. I just don't love a lot of what this team did, to be honest with you. They started off hot last year, and then they just got worse and worse and worse, specifically after the Daniel Jones injury. I could maybe see the opposite happening this year. They start off super bad and then get better and better and better, but it's too late in the end. Ultimately, did this team get any better? I don't believe so. I think at best they stayed stagnant. I think getting Key, the defensive end from the Titans, is a solid move, but you're staying stagnant in my opinion after losing Kwity Paye. I think Clemens is solid from the Jets, but again, you're not doing much. Getting Colby Wooden from the Packers in a trade where you trade away Zaire Franklin, didn't love that move either. I think Zaire Franklin's a better player. Just a lot of average. A lot of, at best, you're staying put. And I just don't love that from the offseason. I do like their draft. Specifically their second-round pick, getting C.J. Allen in the second round, I think is very, very good value. And that does make the trade a little better, by the way. Being able to bring in Wooden and then also replace Franklin with Allen, I do think is good. But in a vacuum, that trade I didn't think was good. It just happened. They were able to make up for it in the second round in the draft. Overall, man, this might be my least favorite offseason that we've talked about so far. When I'm looking at these 2025 team stats, I don't see anything that makes me think they're going to improve any of them. I didn't even realize they allowed so many yards through the air last year. I don't like what they did. I think they overachieved in the first half of last season. They played better. They did better, I should say, than the team is. And then I think they did worse than in the second half, obviously, than what the team is, having Phillip Rivers in at one point. Long story short, I see this team as a 6 to 8 win team. And I don't think anything changed. Nothing in this offseason was good enough to make me believe that they are going to significantly improve at any position. Therefore, I'm going to have to give my lowest grade that I've given so far, which is going to be a C. I'm not grading. There's not a lot of grades that are going to be super high in the A pluses. There's not going to be a lot of grades that are Fs. Their value to everything they did, I'm giving it a C minus. I don't care. I'm just trying to say I'm not going to be too high or too low. I'm not going to overreact. I'm going to say a C minus. I don't know. I like to overreact on TikToks and stuff because views. I mean, let's be real. You want to get views, and so you're going to be a little harsher or a little more excited about moves that are happening. For TikTok, I might say this is an F, just to really prove a point and say how I feel. And the real take is that it's not that bad. It's not an F, but it's not much better. There's just not much that I love. I think I'm going to stick with a C minus. I just think if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. That's the saying. And I think they got worse already, and now they're just going to stay worse. I worry about this team being able to run. I mean, you see them 17th in rushing yards per game. That dropped off significantly after Daniel Jones' injury. If Daniel Jones isn't anywhere near what he was last year, let's say he plays. Let's say he's good. He's healthy. But he's just not as good as he was last year, which is the best in his career. Then they can still lock in on that run, and then they're not going to be as efficient on the ground. I just don't see a world where this team's a playoff team, and I don't see how they got better. So C minus for the Indianapolis Colts. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I almost just, even though we're already in June, I almost want to give this sucker an incomplete. What is this? You make a trade, you get a defensive tackle from the Falcons that I struggle to say his name. Full transparency, so I'm not going to. And then he is a solid player, though. And then you get Chris Rodriguez from the Commanders for a running back. I mean, obviously that's a downgrade from the fact that you're losing Travis Etienne Jr. You lose Devin Lloyd, who was very good for you last year. Greg Newsome, I think, is a good corner. Didn't work in Jacksonville, though, so I don't count that as a major loss to them. But I do think he will be better in New York than he was in Jacksonville. man, they didn't lose too terribly much, but Achan Jr. and Lloyd I think are pretty big losses. Other than that, it's good, solid players, just not great ones. You re-signed Trayvon Walker, which is fine, like 27.5. Again, maybe in the moment I thought that was a little bit of an overpay, but the edge market makes me think that's not the case. Good job signing him at that. There's a lot of criticism on the draft class from the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. And it's hard to disagree, to be honest with you. I do like Emmanuel Pregan, the offensive lineman from Oregon, all the way in the third round. I think he does have his flaws, but all the way in the third round, I think that's good value. Again, I almost just want to give it an incomplete. I mean, how can I give it much more than Indy? Can I give it more than Indy? I don't think, like, they just stayed the same. It's just, I think I almost want to go back in time and give Houston an A- just instead of a B+ or an A. What'd I say? An A. I gave it an A-. I could have gave it an A. Whatever I did, well, I want to go up one because the rest of their division up to this point, until we get to Tennessee, the rest of this division just did nothing. Man, C or C-. I gave the other one a C-. I got to go C- here too. You can maybe even say F. Maybe you could say this isn't an exaggeration. This team did great last year. This team was a game away from being, they lost in the first round, but they could have beat Buffalo. Man, it's just disappointing, honestly, for Trevor Lawrence. This offense is still going to be elite. I have no doubt about that. I think they're going to figure out the rushing attack between Rodriguez and Bishop Tootin. They'll figure it out. I worry about their defense with the pieces they've lost. I don't think they get much worse. Like the Colts, I thought they got a little worse. The Jags, I think, get a little worse. But I think, honestly, when I look at Houston and I compare them to these two teams, I think Houston might run away with this division this year. And I think the Jags could still make the playoffs. But that's not what we're grading here. We're grading this sheet right here. We're grading what they did this offseason. And if I had to grade that, I don't want to overreact. I'm going to go a C- because I don't know. I would argue they lost more important players than the Colts if we're comparing them. I'd argue they've lost more important players. They got way less. They had a worse draft class. You got to go F, right? That feels like an exaggeration because I feel like everyone's going to say they got an F for what they did. And so it feels like an exaggeration, but maybe it's just true. Maybe it's just what happened. They didn't do enough financially. I understand they were capped, but like you just got to do more. And sometimes because of cap situations, you're going to have an F. You're going to have seasons that you don't do good in the offseason just because you don't have any money to keep players. I guess this is one of them. We're going with an F. And finally, we have the Tennessee Titans, which did more than the Jags and the Colts combined, in my opinion. They went out and they had a crazy offseason. So, for starters, they completely get rid of their coaching staff, bringing in a whole new coaching staff. Brian Callahan was a horrible coach. The whole staff was not good. You bring in Robert Saleh. I think that immediately raises your floor. I don't know how great I think Saleh is, but I think you look at those Jets teams he coached and you look at what they were doing, especially compared to before and compared to after. Robert Saleh is a grown-up. He goes in there and he demands a lot from his team, and typically he gets it. Like I said, he was getting the Jets up there in wins. Like, he was looking okay. So, I don't know if I think he has that, like, elite tier of coach in him. Whereas, like, you could say, like, a Kevin O'Connell has that elite tier in him. He may not have quite gotten there, but you can see it. I don't really see that for Saleh. But I do think that he's going to go in there and raise the floor of a team like I think he does with Tennessee. I think that Brian Daboll is a very good offensive coordinator. You saw what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo, and now he's going to come over here and work with Cam Ward. Gus Bradley, not a great coordinator even. He used to be a good coordinator, became a head coach, was not a good head coach, and he got fired from his last job being the Colts defensive coordinator. I put Colts DC. He hadn't been the Colts DC for like a year or two now. Like he's been out of a job. So I don't love that, but Robert Saleh is the head coach, so I think there is more hope, I guess, for the defense. Looking at last year, they were bad at everything, and so there's only one way to go. It's up. So looking at the additions, we'll start with the losses, I guess, but it's more so because I don't care. The team was horrible last year. I don't really care who you lost. You like a Chigakonkwo maybe, and maybe you wish you kept him, but with what Washington ended up paying him, I don't care that much. Lloyd Cushenberry's, your offensive line was bad. Who cares? Arden Key maybe is the guy you wish you would have kept. L'Jarius Sneed's been bad since he got to Tennessee. You don't care really about most of these guys that you lost. You re-signed kickers, third-string running back, and a long snapper. Who cares? So let's get into the meat potatoes. Let's get into the additions. John Franklin Myers seems like he just goes where Saleh goes. Obviously, he was with the Broncos last year, and Saleh was with the Niners. So not fully, but they've been together before, and I think they mesh well together. Clearly, Saleh thinks so as well, giving him a 3-year, $63 million deal. Alontae Taylor, really good upgrade in the cornerback room. The corners were horrible last year. L'Jarius Sneed did not work. I think Alontae Taylor is a great addition. Wan'Dale Robinson, when they signed him, I was like, ugh, I don't love that being your number one because Calvin Ridley is back, and maybe I should have put him on extended. They altered his contract. Calvin Ridley is back, but he is going to be significantly injured. I almost wonder if he's even going to play this year. He had a really bad injury last year. He didn't even look good when he played. So I viewed Wan'Dale as their starter unless I'm blanking on his name, Ao Manor. Unless an Alec Ao Manor is going to take a step forward, which is possible, in which case he'd be taking the number 2 wide receiver away from Wan'Dale. We'll get to in a second. But as now that he is a number 2 or potentially 3 receiver, I do really like that move for that role. Also saw that he's going to wear number 3 for Rondale Moore, which is super cool. They tried for guys like a Jermaine Johnson and a Solomon Thomas. Again, Robert Saleh guys to go on this defensive line. Trubisky getting an adult in there to be the backup quarterback for Cam Ward, I think, is a great, great move. Bring in a Chiefs corner, which hasn't historically done well. Historically, the Chiefs are very good at coaching up corners, and then they leave and they don't play well. But you bring in a Chiefs corner and Joshua Williams. We'll have to see how that plays out. Tommy Townsend, punter that Houston lost. There you go. Tony Adams, another veteran to play safety. A lot of good veteran players. I like KJ Osborne in Minnesota. I'm a Viking fan in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins. He looked good. He'll probably cut before the season starts. I understand that. But I do like it as a move. Hendon Hooker. They made a lot of solid moves, I felt like. They had a ton of cap space, and I thought instead of blowing it on 1 or 2 guys, which to an extent, or sometimes is what you need, here I thought they needed a complete reset with Saleh and Saleh's vision, and clearly that is exactly what you got. So I actually really like the additions that they made. I also really like it because a lot of the times people with the most cap win the offseason. And I think that's true here, but not in the sense that it usually is. It's not like the Raiders who went out and got like the best center and got this and got that. They just did a lot of good. Now, I'm not going to give them an A+ for just doing good, but that's what they did. They just went out and did a lot of good, a lot of good, a lot of good. And you look at this draft class, which is where I think they really did good. I remember sitting on the couch watching the NFL draft. I looked over at my wife and I was like, dang, now that Jeremiah Love's gone, Tennessee should really go get Carnell Tate. Like, the number one thing that tends to happen for quarterbacks to take that next step is getting a legit number 1 wide receiver. There is an argument whether Carnell Tate is a legit number 1 wide receiver. The whole he's never been the number 1 in college is a thing. I don't care about that. I'm not that worried. As far as talent, though, I will admit I don't think he was the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class. As far as talent goes, I think it's Jordan Tyson. But because of injury concerns, I'm all in on taking Carnell Tate first. And I do think Carnell Tate is going to be a number 1 wideout in this league. Now, though, Cam Ward is going from a very bad version of Calvin Ridley, a rookie Alec Ao Manor, to and a rookie DK to those guys year 2, and you're going to Wan'Dale Robinson, Carnell Tate, the receiving core gets significantly better, which is very good when you're trying to see what you have at quarterback, trying to see if Cam Ward is the real deal, and believe me, I think he is. I know a lot of people don't watch Tennessee Titan game, but when you do, he pops off at the screen at you. I've said before, and I understand it makes me sound like Chris Collinsworth, but a lot of the throws he makes looks like Mahomes. He looks Mahomey. He just has some of the most insane plays you'll ever see that just get dropped, and it just doesn't matter because he's on Tennessee. I wish they did more at the offensive line position, but you can't fix everything in one offseason. I think they fixed the coach. I think they got significantly better, and as far as coaching goes, I think they fixed the weapons for Cam Ward. I still like Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears at running back. Like, I don't have a problem with them being your number 1 and 2 running backs. Obviously, it sucks to lose on Jeremiah Love, but you get Carnell Tate, which helped the receiving. You don't have much of a tight end. You lose Okonkwo. You're just going with, blanking on his name right now, dude that's been there. We'll have to see what happens there. I think the defense gets upgraded significantly just because of Robert Saleh. I think the defense gets upgraded significantly, but then you also take into account all the guys they bring in. There's a lot to really like here, and they made way more strides of getting better, and that's really becomes the question of, like, okay, what makes an offseason good? Because they are more improved than the Houston Texans team. But as I said to start this, there was only one place for them to go, and that was up. So, of course, they're more improved. Houston was already very good, and I think they got a little better. Tennessee was horrible, and now I think they've gotten to potentially a 6, like how I think I was the Colts earlier, I said, a 6 to 8 win team. I think that's what Tennessee is about this year, a 6 to 8 win team. So, obviously, I think they made better improvements. I think they made the right moves. I think they're resetting the culture and they're resetting the franchise behind Robert Saleh's vision. I really don't know how you get much better in one offseason. Like, I might have to go AA or A+ even. Because I don't know how you completely change the culture, you change the tone. And I like the moves that you made. There are not many moves you're going to make that was going to be worse than Brian Callahan. So you're going to upgrade your coach no matter what. I like a lot of the stuff that they did. I'm going to go with I'm not going to go with A+. I'm going to try to save the A+. It's crazy. I was about to start this video by saying, like, I'm not going to go A+ and Fs because I don't want to be over dramatic. Maybe on TikToks I will, but for this I don't want to be. And I almost just gave an A+, and I did give an F. Crazy how videos go when you don't have a script. I just go out there and start talking, and this is what we got. Let me know if you enjoy. Leave a like, subscribe, do all of the YouTube things. I'm going to be doing, what is it next? I should know this. I'm doing the AFC. Oh, I had the wrong thing clicked. Let's check this real quick. I should edit this, but I'm not. I'm sorry. Next, we are doing the AFC South. Oops, that's what we're doing now. So those will get swapped. I was supposed to do the AFC West. We'll be doing the AFC West later in this week, probably Thursday or Friday. Of course, today we did the AFC South. And then going into next week, we'll be doing the AFC East and the NFC East. And we can talk a little bit about like an A.J. Brown trade and things of that nature. That's why I had him later, because when I made the schedule, I didn't know when A.J. Brown was going to get traded. Well, now we know. Anyway, so yeah, make sure to drop a subscribe if you enjoyed this. We have a lot more going for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be doing these, and then we have a bunch of other fun stuff planned. Again, if you're into fantasy football and you want to win your fantasy leagues, subscribe to Zealous Fantasy, and I'll see you next time.